Just a second, guys. Getting my camera turned on here. Okay, I got the camera on now. Took a look up and running. Thank you guys for tuning in every morning, as always. 4:30 a.m. Pacific, 7:30 a.m. Eastern, every single day, Monday through Friday. The daily plan stream for the Plan the Profit trading community. I'm your host, Joe Boss. Today I'll be your boss. And I got things pretty well set up now here in OBS. I'm getting things really set up here. So I'm kind of have a slightly different setup. Was that the right one? Let's see. Yep, that's the right one. Something's going on with my spectralizer thing. There we go. All right, let's head on over to... Let's first do... Actually... And go over the announcements for the day. Let's see here. Okay. So, we had some updates to the outlooks with RBNZ. So, Westpac and I believe ASB both came out with outlooks that are on the more bullish side. Go ahead and take a look at those. Westpac Economic Bulletin changed to the OCR forecast. So this right here is the forecast for New Zealand's cash rate, official cash rate forecast. RBNZ's official forecast is right here. And then Westpac's forecast is in red. Their previous forecast is this really dim, like purple pink line. So you can see that Westpac has increased what the New Zealand bank's central bank rate's going to be over a longer time horizon. Actually kind of significantly. So this is longer for New Zealand. And, you know, one of the currencies that have been actually getting hit most in the FX space has been the New Zealand dollar, based off these original expectations here in pink. I don't even know if how clear it is for you guys to see that level, but there's been an increase, a move along market expectations in line with the RBNZ's expectations. So there is concern that the RBNZ will do another rate hike. And Westpac now expects that rate hike to come by November, and that they'll do 25 basis points of hikes, and will go from 5.5% to 5.75%. You know, big whoop. Okay, so we're effectively at the terminal rate. They'll do maybe one more hike, but all throughout right now, the expectations are by the end of this year, we'll be at the terminal rate in New Zealand. ASB is another institution, and they have exactly the same thing. This is a more in-depth look at the New Zealand economy, and more specifically, their employment and labor situation. All the way here at the bottom, though, is what I was interested in reading. What will the RBNZ do, right? That's what I'm interested in figuring out. There looks to be a high hurdle to changes in the OCR over the next few months. And so they say a nervous wait lies ahead for firms, institutional trading operations, businesses, households, and policymakers, that there is still the risk that the OCR could peak above 5.5% this cycle. And by this cycle, they mean by the end of this year. So it looks like the expectation is very, very stern now that we will be getting the terminal rate in at least the New Zealand Central Bank sometime this year. The other two pieces of news that I went over actually in the Discord is we have some minutes and a speech out of the Bank of Japan. So if I go back, these are minutes. I'm not going to go and read through all these minutes. Actually, no, this is the speech, and this, yeah, these are your minutes. This is probably worth reading, especially if you're on the newer side to trading, but it's a good habit to read these as soon as they come out. One thing I found interesting while I was reading through these, check this out. The bank, as in the Bank of Japan, will purchase a necessary amount of JGBs without setting an upper limit so that 10-year JGB yields will remain around 0%. The yen had depreciated against the US dollar mainly on the back of a widening of the yield differential between Japan and the United States. Gee, it's almost like those that has something to do with something we talk about almost every single day. I wonder what they could be talking about. Something yield spreads. something. Okie doke. So there's definitely good information to see how the Bank of Japan interprets the current economic conditions and future economic conditions. And if you're not privy to that information and you're just getting into trading, or you don't feel totally competent about your understanding of what the Bank of Japan is actually looking at, always start out with the most recent information like this and go forward. Don't get me wrong, this is 27 pages on it, but that's part of the job. If you want to be day trading, a big part of actually doing successful day trading is knowing when there's new information coming out that changes future trading expectations. So if you don't know where people stand right now and you're trying to trade yen pairs, then some new information comes out about the Bank of Japan. How do you put that information into immediate context so that then you know, oh, this has a big effect, a small effect, a bullish or bearish effect? And being able to discretionarily make those decisions comes down to how good of an expert you are. And how good of an expert you are depends on how well you understand current market expectations for the future and the reasons why we have those expectations right now, based off what conditions, what indicators. Speaking of, now would actually be a good time if anyone in chat wants to get some analysis from me on any assets. I will give a little bit of an update on this. You can see the yield spreads are super negative here still. But I do have something a little new on the charts. As you may see, there are these little orange lines with the range probabilities indicator. There's all these, this is like the prototype of it. But if you go into the settings of the indicator, there's this quantiles box, and you can put any quantile you want, and it'll spit out, hey, you want the 50% probability, where 50% of your tops for the week come in. That's this line right here. 50% of the time, your top comes in above that level. 50% of the time, it comes in below that level. Same thing here with the 75% line. But, you can still look at the whole freaking distribution and see like, oh, roughly around here, most of the time you top out before you start experiencing a higher degree of variance in your returns. Because note how there's like, how these lines are super close together here, and then they get further and further and further apart. That's because the data gets more and more variance, more and more volatile as you get higher and higher returns, and that makes sense. So there's just the statistical phenomenon expressing that idea. So that's all well and good. here. Do we have any requests for charts so far? Doesn't look like it. I'll go ahead and then down. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I forgot to transition the chart. This is what I'm looking. I'm looking at these little orange lines that say 50%, 25%, 10%, 0.75. Because here in the settings, you could put in the percentage you want, and it'll spit out, hey, this is where your probability lies in this distribution. So 50% of the time, your top comes in above this 50% line. 50% of the time comes in below that line. And again, this is, I literally just whipped this up in like the 2 hours before getting here on the stream. So this is by no means complete, but I am looking forward to the next update of this indicator for you guys. I am absolutely looking forward to it. In the meantime, it looks like, at least for Euro Yen and all the yen pairs, they did get hit pretty hard today. Well, that is, all the yen pairs got stronger, all the JPY parts of those. So dollar yen yield spreads are on the short term. You can see how the short-term yield spreads are moving in favor of the yen. So that's these first two columns right here. And you can see it's mostly lagged the yield spread from 25 days ago. That's creating these big green boxes. So overall, there's not much to see there. The short-term effect is bearish, it looks like. Euro yen, again, we were just looking at this. It's red. It's bearish across the board. These were pretty smart shorts. And if I turn on the drawings, you can see we got pretty close to the short stop for this particular trade that I took right at the beginning of the week, based off range probabilities. And yeah, that was definitely a good stop, and well, you can see why. Just a little bit past that 75th percentile. If you look in the current version of the indicator, it's like this is the 90th percentile. So again, I got to figure out how to get that number back. Let's see here. Anything else? Anything else? Oh, all right. I'm getting my chat now. Hello, Philios. Hello, Ahmed. All right, and Rand, nice to see you. Let's see here, US 30, that's the Dow, and Euro Pound. And if you would like a couple more Great British Pound pairs because of tomorrow's BOE interest rate decision, yeah. And also it seems pretty set in stone that they're going to do some sort of hike. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's start off with the Dow, right? DJI. Up and away. I mean, we can do a US 30. Yeah, a whole lot of nothing, I think, on US 30 from Oanda. I mean, I got a drawing here saying to go up and top out here and then pull back, so yeah. 3,500 is still in the cards. This was the trade plan from 2 days ago. Yeah. So the trade plan from 2 days ago so far has been in effect. I mean, I think we made this trade plan. Yeah, we made this trade plan over here. Yep, it hit the probability weighted pivot high, and that's that. No other information necessary, really. You'll probably go down to this area right here, the 3,500. Let's go over to the pound, the Euro Pound. There's still some upside. The yield spreads are still on the negative end of things, but they still have this long-term positive effect still going on. How about on the daily? Yeah, you can see how these yield spreads have this long-term positive effect. You see from 25 trading days ago is that green line. And then over the last 7 days to right now, you can see how how all the yield differentials across every single duration here has just been getting more and more and more negative. So short term, this is not looking good. That's not a very constructive yield spread outlook. So let's go ahead, turn that off. Let's go to our weekly pivot probability. So you could have topped out here. It might have been prudent to put in some shorts here with the stop at R1. Let's go down to our low odds, see if we're going to effectively be range bound. Yeah, that was also reasonable, but yeah, I really wouldn't be surprised if you did have another dip lower. Considering how negative those yield differentials are, I would absolutely not. Yeah, check that out. There's a bump in your distribution. Yeah, all these lines are kind of getting in the way. So hopefully I put in a toggle option to remove those orange lines going across. You can get rid of them right now in a fancy way, but let's not deal with that right now. It's all a bunch of technical stuff. Anyways, it looks like this has definitely got a bearish tilt to it here, especially going into the Bank of England meeting. It makes sense. When you go ahead and you also look at pound dollar, you can see the negative move. I did this trade plan actually yesterday with a member in my trading group. You can see how the yield spreads are still negative here on pound dollar. But going into, and I mean, we did this yesterday as well, I think. We did this on the stream yesterday, pound dollar. The expectation is that the yield differentials will start to get positive once you've started trading below this S1 pivot. And hopefully you do get another pullback into this area, because those are some pretty good buying odds to the downside, in all seriousness. Yeah, you got another little bump in your distribution right there. You can stop out below the S1.5. That's all reasonable, all fairly reasonable. Let's see here. Anything else? I mean, that was kind of fast. We just went over all the important news, BoJ meeting stuff, current situation of and outlook for prices. I mean, why wouldn't you want to read this stuff? If you're going to be trading yen pairs, why wouldn't you want to be reading this? Seb Research talking about, this is their chief economist writing this, saying, hey, the US has been doing really, really well economically, but earnings are kind of stagnant. Also, ratings. After trading hours, rating agency Fitch downgraded US credit rating from AAA to AA+. The motive was weakening US government finances and the recurring problem with the debt ceiling. It's a big nothing burger, guys. Big nothing burger. I mean, why didn't they do this credit downgrade back when they were having the debt ceiling problems? I mean, the debt ceiling problem is now resolved. There is also this outlook that just got released by Guggenheim on Walsh, CIO of Guggenheim. Huge breakdown of why they're still bearish. See, here's a chart. Equity market performance. Oh, thank you for that. Equity market performance looks similar to 2007. Sorry, guys, but just because things have a fractal look to them doesn't mean that the fractal's actually going to play out. Multiple fractals have fractals to them. Well, that's what makes it a fractal. Yeah, so this is a whole breakdown of a big institution's foot forward. And it's an interesting read. Consumer sentiment out of Switzerland is that it picked up. It's still overall negative territory, but you can clearly see here by the red line moving a bit higher that consumer sentiment for, what is it? Based on the July survey, consumers have since April raised their expectations of economic growth over the next 12 months. That's it. So they're still in negative territory, but they're in much better territory than we were almost a year ago. So sentiment in Switzerland is picking up. And then this is a geopolitical piece by United States Studies Center talking about the global race to regulate artificial intelligence. The link to this is in the Plan to Progress Discord. If you go to the Discord and then under, I believe, yep, right here, standardization, trust, and democratic principles, the race to regulate artificial intelligence. The link to the articles right here in the Discord under the macro to micro research channel. And it's a whole breakdown on current prospects for regulating AI and the different stances being taken towards it. Check this out. Australia is still considering its place in this complex global competition. The Australian government released a discussion paper on safe and responsible AI to consider whether further regulatory and governance responses are required to ensure appropriate safeguards are in place. So it's like, okay, what do they got going on there? Look, guys, AI is going to be a big part of our future going forward. How companies are using AI and the data going into AI is going to be a big deal. So getting competent about it, if you're going to invest in anything, any company that uses AI, it's good to know what the regulatory frameworks being proposed are, so then you can see which ones are likely to pass, which ones are likely not to, and then under that situation see which companies are or are not following those regulatory frameworks already. Because that might lead to good long or short opportunities based off of, oh, this company has they're, making sure that they're being very transparent in how AI is used in their products and their services, all that kind of stuff. I'm not too big in AI investment right now, but who knows, maybe at some point in the future I become a specialist about it. But just being aware of generally what's going on in the world and things that are happening keeps you conscious and aware of the different risks that can be out there. And isn't that a neat little picture? Okay. Let's see here. Oh. Also, I forgot to transition the screen again. I need to have like an automated button to transition my screen. Or I just need to not use studio mode and just be whenever I change something on my screen, it automatically switches to it. Okay. So right now, pound dollar is fallen on the negative yield spread. As expected, we're probably going to go down to this lower 127 handle. We'll probably end up going lower for the month. If we check up on the USD CAD trade, that is going up, and away. You can see it's going straight to that bullish threshold. Yeah, what an awesome, awesome trade this has been. And yeah, once you go past this R1, it's a guessing game where you're going to top out now. So this is on increasing yield spreads and a lower probability area. So this is now kind of the tail risk based off weekly returns. It's like you just don't touch this. I mean, considering that next week's odds are also very bullish, 80.95% of the time, your top next week is somewhere above this R0.5 weekly pivot. Oh, hold on a second. Heyo, there's the chart. So I'm looking at this R0.5 weekly pivot right here. And I'm seeing we have positive yield spreads on the candle. And when I actually view the yield spreads here, it's all green, 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 green. So this is all positive, positive, positive for continued dollar appreciation against the Canadian. And going into next week, I will maintain the bullish bias. However, do I think we're going to see this? I'm not too sure if we're going to see these like monthly levels actually start to come in. I mean, look, a pullback doesn't have to happen. These sorts of things can just go up and up and up for 5 days and then come down slightly over the rest of the month. But yeah, 134 not out of the question. High 133s not out of the question. If we go and check up on euro dollar is holding in at its current price right now. It's been holding there. But Lord, those are some pretty angry looking yield spreads. These yield spreads are getting more negative. I'm surprised it hasn't moved down on this jump lower in the yield spreads. How do our probabilities look? Well, we're at the 75th quartile, 75th% quartile. We'll probably go down here if the negative yield spreads continue following through, go into the lower part of the 1.09 handle. Probably into end of week. Bum ba da bum. Let's see here. Oh, accidentally hit the pivots. And yeah, S1 looks good. How about we look at some commodities? Because in the last couple of streams, I haven't really checked out commodities. We can look at these gold futures. It looks like we've topped out for the day. I know XAU USD is kind of the one to be checking out instead of GC, but you can still see we hit the likely top for the week there on gold. And did we hit the likely bottom for the week? Yes, we did. In fact, we went right to the probability weighted pivot low for the week. And if we look at our distribution thingamajig, we're right here where most of the time you bottom out. Right around here. And then it starts to tail out, tail out, tail out. Yeah. So that was actually a reasonable spot to get in for the week. So the low, it's not impossible for the low to be in for the week, but considering how strong the US dollar is, I'd be on the more cautious side for sure. I'd be on the more cautious side for sure. Yeah, whenever the US dollar is on the stronger side of things, it's never especially fantastic for commodities. Let's look at oil. This orange line here is a summary once a week, every single Friday in the Discord. If you go here and you go to general, we got this thread, trading assessment survey, where I go ahead and I ask you 5 very simple questions about what are the odds you think are that we will close the next week bullish or bearish. And it turns out that last week we got a lot of responses, and that's led to some pretty darn good probabilities. Oh yeah, I forgot the transition again. It's this little thread thing right here. And you can see here are the responses. So you guys were very bullish dollar, sort of bullish on S&P. You guys were pretty sort of bullish on oil. A lot of variance on oil. And you guys were definitely bearish on Bitcoin. Let's check out Bitcoin. And then you guys were on the more bearish side for TLT. So and TLT is bonds. So let's go and check up on how you guys have done so far. At least with oil, you guys have been on point. Let's go to DXY. You guys have been on point. Let's go to Bitcoin. Well, you guys were right up until this big spike came in. And also you smack dab tapped the probability weighted pivot low for the week here on Bitcoin. I wonder if you also hit the high. I don't know if you did or not, because this looks like it's got more of a, yeah, definitely more tail risk. Definitely more tail risk there. Let's actually check this out. Yeah, a lot of your lows come in right here. A lot of your highs come in right here. I would imagine you see more of a negative drift come in, considering this is probably just a continuation of the last, call it, month or so of data points. Let's go ahead and check out ZB. Oh, you guys were absolutely right on this one so far. Yeesh. Very, very correct on the direction for bonds. Let's see. I don't think I missed. Oh yeah, S&P. Oh, very, very wrong. But then again, it just tapped this area here, this big old 50%, and went lower. Do we not have enough historical data for this thing to load? Yeah, apparently not. Alrighty, if there is some more follow through on this downside, it'll probably be around S2. So call it 45.20 if it's a particularly bearish week. Otherwise, the longs that have been coming in right around here will probably hold, but I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about that, my homie. Let's go ahead and look at the momentum. Yeah, that ain't constructive. Yeah. There is still some downside risk here. And the expectation for the S&P, while still net positive right now, there's still quite a bit of pessimism in the analysis from all the different outlooks I'm getting on the S&P. A lot of the expectations for the S&P are going to be coming from the earnings outlook. So if you're trading actively the S&P, it'll be important for you to watch those outlooks, those future expectations during the earnings reports. Because you can have very good earnings come out, you can have relatively good earnings come out, but the forward guidance be crap and get run over there. All right, so I think it'd be a good time to get any last calls for requests. I'll go ahead and do a quick refresh here on the live stream to see if I got any new chats, and just my YouTube chat didn't load it up. Screen again, can't see it. News in 5 minutes. Yep, there we go. I was missing some chats there. Let's see here. Economic calendar. Let's check out the calendar. Oh yeah, ADP. Right. ADP. Forecast is lower than previous. Let's see how much it actually changes. Let's see. One trade I did put on that people had questions about in the trade group. They're like, Joe, why are you buying New Zealand dollar? And all I got to do is pull this up and say, hey, a lot of your lows come in roughly around here for the week. And if US dollar sees any sort of bounce at all, right, there's your probability weighted pivot low for the week. So I went ahead and I got in along somewhere, let's see, at 61111. So I wasn't able to get this trade, but you can very clearly see definitely correct on the expectation there. My expectation right now, while it is bullish, it's not that bullish. This is literally a hedge trade. I am net long the US dollar, but this is for simple protection. Let's see. This can go as high as it can go. It's just because this is a likely low, I am inclined to take some hedge here. And real quick. Let's see if that changes much. Nope, didn't really change a whole lot here. A lot of your lows, 50% of the time, your low for this week comes in right here based off the returns distribution over the last 2,000 days. We can make that 4,000 12-hour bars. And double the data and see what that gives us. Yeah, loading that much data sometimes can take a little bit. Yeah, and it didn't really change the distribution all that much. In fact, these percentiles didn't really move. Look at that. There's your 10th and 25th percent odd areas way down here saying, hey, you got a tail risk right here, boy. And then this is another decent spot to get in, and this is another decent spot to get in. So you can see why I'm excited to have these little lines, because you can probably set up alerts at these lines. Or what I can probably do is create a strategy where it's like, hey, you know, what's your threshold for the probability of trades that you want to be taking? Oh, you want to only take trades that 70% of the time have historically made money. Well, then let's find the 70th percent area here, go long. You know, that sort of scenario, though, will get you stopped out week after week after week in a situation like COVID. So, you know, when a computer is just programmed to do something simple, it can do very dumb things, which is why this is still a discretionary tool and not an automated strategy. Because you can look at these probabilities and say, like, yeah, you know, there's some chance that the low comes in right now. Or you can reasonably say, oh, I still have bearish expectations for the New Zealand economy and the RBNZ. In fact, Westpac and ASB and BNZ, all these New Zealand institutions that do lots of business in New Zealand, have come out and said, hey, maybe we need to be a little more dovish, because we're not really supposed to be expecting another rate hike maybe until November. And so they just updated all their forecasts today saying they're not going to anticipate a rate hike till November. So if you do get another rate hike at the next FOMC meeting, another rate hike at the next ECB meeting, then New Zealand dollar down and Euro USD down. And look at that. Look at these. Look how the yield spreads have treated you so far in this one. Pretty good relationship on the yield spreads, right? Negative yield spread here, starting to go more neutral here. Positive yield spread, negative yield spread, positive yield spread. Negative yield spread all the way from the tippy top. And check that out. 50% probability right there. Hey, that would have been a good buy. It's nice when all that stuff just works out perfectly. It's like a little chef's kiss. It's like a little chef kiss. Okie doke. So let's go ahead and look at, I think, DXY. Oh, we actually, Great British Pound, US dollar, and DXY. We're getting alerts. Oh, looks like our pound dollar is actually going below S1. Yay! So somewhere here between S1 and S2 is where I anticipate a lot of lows to come in at, and that's not just using range probabilities, that's also using pivot probabilities. We got a lot closer here to the probability weighted pivot low. If we check out the XY, we are going up, 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 and up. Let's check out our upside deviations then. Let's load a bit more historical data into that. So where are our likely highs for the week? Probably somewhere around 102. So once you crack this new high, you probably got another 20 points to go on the index. So you're probably not going to stop at 102 flat as a level. You'll probably go up to 102.2 or 102.3. And that might be an interesting level to get a short on the US dollar or to take some profits. The New Zealand dollar hedge I got on NZD USD. Should I hop out of this? Let's see. I want to look at the daily yield spread. Yeah, those yield spreads are getting a little more on the negative side. Let's check out the 1 hour. Did the yield spread get super negative? Nah, sorta. ADP employment came in much better than forecast. Much better than forecast. However, it is the always wrong ADP. So ADP can give you an insight. I mean, it is an economic data point, but the number of people who give ADP flack is immense. Let's see here. Any commentary? NFP may drop the dollar. I don't think so. I don't think so, Turnbull. I don't think so. Yes, and thank you very much for that, Philios. Yeah, I don't. This is a whole lot of nothing. A whole lot of nothing. DXY actually, USD CAD. That's continuing to go up, up, and away. Let's check out the euro dollar. Did that move euro dollar at all? No. So ADP is not moving anything. ADP is not moving jack diddly squat buck all. Yeah, isn't that nice? You got like a peak in your distribution right here, a peak right there. This is what you call a trimodal peak in your distribution. Right? You got a peak right there, a peak right there, and a peak right there. Trimodal peak. And it's very clearly the 75th percent, where most of the time your low comes in there. 50% of the time your low comes in around here. 25% of the time your low comes in around here. Yeah. Looks pretty good. Jeez, look at that tail risk all the way down here. That's the 5% probability. Yeesh. I mean, very clearly, this would be a spot where you put your tail risk stop. Like, in a COVID situation, this is like, if you've set up limits go long and long here, and long here, something horrible happened to the world. Russia did more invasions or whatever. This is where you stop out there. You don't keep going long the euro. Now, over here, where just over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trading days gave you this whole return. 5 trading days made up most of this return here. Isn't that insane? This just goes to show how there's some very upside surprises that can come along. If you get any sort of upside surprise in Euro, it can be like a 100 pip day on an upside surprise. But now we're getting downside surprise, negative yield spread, so I don't think we have to worry about those sorts of days. Yeah, I would definitely still be anticipating the lower part of the 109 handle here. Let's check out the JPY, yen. Hey guys, check that out. We hit the likely top for the week. Are we going to now go to the likely bottom for the week, which is down here? Do I have my drawings up? Well, I expected an up and a down. I wonder if we will get our down real quick. Yeah, it looks like we'll probably get our down somewhere around the S1 on pound yen. Things could move down real far, real fast. Hey, check that out. We got our bump in our distribution right here. So conservatively right here around central pivot and more aggressively around S1. Okey-doke. Seems pretty straightforward to me. Now we see a little bit more downside. How about our upside? Is that pretty much taken care of? Yeah. Most of the time you're topping out around here. More aggressively, you're topping out around there. That makes sense to me. Alrighty. Is there any calls for any charts you guys want me to take a quick look at? Anything you guys want me to check out for today? Again, good bullishness on the DXY. Those were bullish continuation odds on the low pivot probabilities. When you have more than 20-25% of your probabilities for your low in the week occurring above the weekly central pivot, this is good call for bullish continuation. Let's see here. And it's going to be a little bit more on the bullish side next week. It'd be a good buy the dip next week, usually on DXY next week. Again, you could be topping out here. There is still room to go higher. Yeah, there's definitely still some room to go higher. But if you do, it'll probably be constrained to this R1.5 pivot. So, yeah, about 20% of your tops come in around here. Hey, check out this as your tail risk. Isn't it neat to be able to actually see, oh, there's your tail risk. So maybe put your stop at R2 if you don't want to get smacked on any dollar shorts. Yeah, risk management becomes a lot more straightforward when you have actual probabilities you can attribute to price movements. Euro Swissy. Oh, we had some arrows that went up and up like that. Probably because our probability weighted pivot high is way up here. And oh, check that out. This is the more aggressive top for this particular week. So maybe we'll end up going into the upper half of this 96.5 level, somewhere around here. And that'll be that. Stop at the R1 pivot seems reasonable before you start experiencing some of these tail risk odds. So yeah, not the worst idea to have a short on now, considering that I think if I look at the yield spreads, no, the yield spreads here are actually still quite freaking positive here on a daily. But again, Swissy is a little weird when it comes down to the yield differentials, because notice how we're getting positive yield differentials in these green colored bars, but we're moving lower. Usually when you have positive yield differentials, you're supposed to see positive movements in price. The reason why we're seeing positive yield differentials here on the Swiss franc, on the Euro Swiss franc, is because the Swiss franc doesn't move. Its yields don't move. So the only thing that had any sort of movement was the euro yields, and those were still going up. And the euro yields are still going up again. And there's still some upside movement for the rest of the month, I think. But the question is, do you actually see that for... Do you actually see that for this week? I'll be frank, I don't know too much about the Swiss economy to be able to make super hard calls on whether or not this is gonna totally explode and whatnot. But if it did have a chance to totally explode to the upside and rocket up and up, it would probably be next week. I mean, you see how a lot of your odds get skewed higher here? Pretty flat odds. Your odds are... The variance of your probabilities is spread over a wider range, is the proper way to say that. So I'd be on the careful side for now, going from here to the end of week, as far as taking any more bullish risk, until maybe you get to some kind of pullback next week. Let's see. Where are the lows for next week on Euro Swissy? Come on. You would think you'd be able to load data faster, but, 20 years of data is 20 years of data. So somewhere above S1, most likely, you find the low. Yeah, that'll probably be the case. You'll have some slight pullback below weekly central into this area. Now, note, these pivot points move. And by move, I mean they require the entire period's data. So right now, we only have half of this current week's data. So it's this next set of pivots is taking the data we have so far and drawing what the pivot points would look like next week based off just this data. So as we get the next 2 or 3 days of data here on Euro Swissy, these pivot points will move and update. And then once you get into the last 4, 5, 12, 24 hours, once you get into the last trading day, you can have relative clarity as to where the pivots are going to end up next week and start making more decisive trade plans based off pivots as to where your entries and exits and stops are going to be, your EES. Otherwise, this is just good for visualizing, okay, here's what your probabilities are going to look like. Maybe you have a pullback down and then up. You're probably going to have your stop at S1. And then the actual price that you select is going to be determinate once you actually get there in time. I'm in at 95.6. 95.6. Well, that is fan-freaking-tastic. If you got in on that little wick, that is fan-freaking-tastic. High probability spot, too. That spot actually is exactly the S0.5 weekly pivot and the 50th percent probability. where 50% of your probabilities are above and below that level, exactly the 50% level. Yeah, man, that's kind of crazy. Alrighty, you guys. I think I am good. That everything is pretty much covered for today. We're gonna have some big moves happening in the Great British Pound. So watch out for that over the next little while. Let's see here. It's like Pound Aussie. So Pound's doing better than Aussie. Pound New Zealand. It's kind of tiptoeing, trying to improve here. Pound yen, not doing great. Pound dollar, not doing great. Yep, it'll probably make another little lower low here. And my anticipation is so long the yield spreads actually improve on this day or the day before on the rate hike that's expected from the BOE, that you'll get some sort of bounce into end of week. Okay, with all the trade plans and risk managements and probabilities done, if you hang out with me over on Discord, I will be in the trading room chat over on the Discord. So if you want to hang out with me for 30 minutes, an hour, go over some trade plans, talk about joining the trading group if you haven't done that yet, or go over some of the trade research we went over at the very beginning of the stream, figure out maybe where you can get the links to those things. Come on, hop on in. First link in the description, Plan the Profit Discord. Alrighty, you guys. All take care, stay healthy, and never risk more than you can afford to lose, all that good stuff. And I will see you tomorrow, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, for the next daily plan. I've been your gracious host, Joe Boss. I'll see you in the Discord if you want to hang out. Later, guys. In a bit.